Hello, my name is Paul Stevers, and I'm going to introduce you to an opportunity that has emerged to accelerate mitigating carbon emissions on a very large scale in a relatively short amount of time. For the purpose of this presentation, carbon emission reduction and removal from the outside air are both considered to be carbon mitigation measures. This is a solution that can be scaled globally. The world is getting warmer at an increasing rate. Shown next is a short video segment that illustrates how the warming trend is correlating with rising atmospheric CO2 levels, and that these levels are continuing to rise at an increasing rate.
The world is getting warmer and at an increasing rate. A large reason for this is CO2 levels in the atmosphere. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, they have risen at an unprecedented rate. Rising CO2 levels had been correlating closely with rising global temperatures since 1880. This graph shows rising CO2 levels on a shorter timescale as measured at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. On an even shorter timescale, you can see average CO2 levels have continued to rise despite a global economic slowdown from the coronavirus pandemic, which is shown by the black line. The red line on this graph shows the seasonal variations.
Why are these CO2 levels continuing to rise at an increasing rate? There are several factors contributing to this rising CO2 levels, but the main reason for this rise is that the total overall global energy demand appears to be increasing faster than the renewable energy generation growth rate. Therefore, carbon emissions need to be mitigated on a much larger scale than what has been occurring. In addition to expanding carbon-free energy generating solutions as fast as possible, the world needs to implement carbon capture from existing fossil fuel energy sources on a very large scale. Fortunately, there is a new technology by Global Thermostat that can cost-effectively capture CO2 from both the outside air and a natural gas power plant. Captured CO2 can be utilized for a range of uses, including vertical farming, as well as be sequestered in the ground. Initially, CO2 captured from these power plants would be mostly sequestered in the ground. However, once there is a reliable source of low-cost CO2 available, this CO2 can be used for many other uses, including accelerating plant growth in indoor farms, strengthening concrete building materials, and production of carbonated beverages. There are several sequestration options for CO2 captured from power plants. This includes injecting CO2 into oil and gas fields, into balsamic formations, and into salt caverns. Carbon dioxide that is captured from power plants can be complemented from other sources that use other carbon capture technologies. For example, carbon dioxide can be captured from existing cement plants and combined with carbon dioxide from power plants in the same pipeline for transfer to long-term storage or for utilization. Companies with carbon sequestration expertise can engage with major carbon emitters such as power generation utilities and cement manufacturing companies to create and operate commercially viable large-scale sequestration projects. Once a project is viable, smaller sources of captured CO2 can be added to the sequestration project. There are a wide range of carbon capture technologies available today, including ones that capture carbon from industrial processes and the outside air. Capturing CO2 from the outside air is called direct air capture, or DAC. Listed here are some selected companies with carbon capture technologies. The first one is Global Thermostat, which has a technology that can capture carbon from both natural gas power plant and from the outside air. Climeworks has a technology for DAC that has recently launched in Iceland that will capture about 4,000 tons per year of CO2. Net Power has developed a new process called the Alum cycle that enables 100% carbon capture from power plant fueled by natural gas. Finally, Shell has developed a technology that can capture CO2 from industrial processes such as cement manufacturing. Shown here is an illustration of Global Thermostat's DAC solution. It captures CO2 in a honeycomb contactor via their proprietary sorbent material. Then they use a low temperature process heat in the range of 80 to 100 degrees C to release the captured CO2. The plus version of their solution, which is called DAC Plus, has a very important added feature. It can cost-effectively capture CO2 from both the outside air and a natural gas power plant. It does so in these three simple steps. First, a DAC module starts its cycle by capturing CO2 from the outside air. After this module has captured all the CO2 it efficiently can from the outside air, flue gas from the natural gas power plant is fed into this module. Once the module has captured all the CO2 it efficiently can from the flue gas, it is then recharged using low temperature process heat. Then this cycle is started over again. Shown here is an illustration of a DAC plus solution that includes flue gas input from a natural gas power plant. Global thermostat indicates that very little additional capital is required to include this added carbon capture feature. The net result of this DAC plus solution is that it can effectively capture CO2 from both the outside air and natural gas fueled energy source without the need of additional carbon capture technology such as the alum cycle. Therefore, this solution can be widely deployed relatively quickly on a global scale as a negative emissions power plant. Shown here is an example of a combined power system designed for maximum reliability with negative carbon emissions. The natural gas power plant delivers power to the power management system. This power management system is supplied with electricity from wind and solar farms. To help manage the power more effectively, this power management system includes energy storage to manage short-term power peaks and shortfalls. If a substantial amount of power is reduced for a longer period of time, such as if there is no wind power for a few days, the power management system reduces power to the direct air capture system of the CO2. In this way, the power management system can maximize the reliability of power to the electric grid. The carbon dioxide that is captured from the power plant and direct air capture system can be utilized in beneficial ways such as accelerating growth of food in a vertical farm or sequestered in the ground. To accelerate the development of a range of carbon capture technologies and enable a larger pool of people to become knowledgeable about these types of technologies, demonstration projects utilizing these types of technologies could be implemented in major CCUS clusters such as the Alberta Carbon Trunk Line in Alberta, the Net Zero Teesside in the UK, or the Carbon Safe project in North Dakota. To view a more comprehensive list of these types of clusters around the world, you can view the Global Status of CCS 2020 report by the Global CCS Institute. There are many organizations around the world working on CCUS issues, including technology development. This includes the Global CCS Institute, the IEA Greenhouse Gas R&D Program, and the National Carbon Capture Center in the US. As a result, there are many specialists who can be invited to help develop and evaluate demonstration projects located in CCUS clusters that could combine industrial capture technologies with direct air capture technologies and renewable energy farms as outlined earlier. This approach could help accelerate the development and scale up of these technologies around the world. In addition to CCUS research centers, there are several research centers that are focused on DAC. This includes the Center for Negative Carbon Emissions at ASU, Direct Air Capture Center at Georgia Tech, and the Elk Coast Institute. Researchers from these centers can also be invited to participate in the development and evaluation of demonstration projects in CCUS clusters. These centers can also help accelerate development and scale up of large-scale projects that include carbon capture, storage, and renewable energy farms. In addition to facilitating development and evaluation of demonstration projects in major CCUS clusters, CCUS and DAC research centers could be invited to work on projects that facilitate the overall scale-up of carbon emission mitigation technologies, such as the following ones. First, identify many good locations for facilities that could use DAC technology. Then estimate the capital and operating costs of an appropriately sized facility based on local conditions and the availability of energy. Next, explore complementary technology options such as the vertical farms for selected possible locations for implementation. In addition, explore options to receive CO2 from large emitters of this gas that can be sequestered in the same location as the selected DAC project location. Next, work with green bond specialists in order to evaluate selected projects and determine if they are green bond eligible. Next, reach out to potential partners who may want to finance or operate these facilities. Lastly, prepare proposals for funding for next steps needed for scale-up. If these types of combined power and carbon capture systems were implemented in thousands of locations around the world, the scale of the impact on reducing carbon emissions would be extremely large, likely in the range of billions of tons of CO2 per year. Green bonds, which are growing quickly and totaled more than $295 billion last year, can be an effective way to finance these combined power systems. Shown next is a simplified flowchart illustrating how projects using these types of combined systems can be financed. Typically, green bonds are issued once a project is operational and generating income, so bridge financing is normally needed to construct and commission these combined power systems. This bridge financing normally includes at least two components. The first is the equity component that is provided by the owners of the project and the respective investors. The second component is a bank loan by one or more financing institutions like the Canada Infrastructure Bank. When the green bonds are issued to repay the bridge financing, they can be promoted to financial firms that are likely buyers of these bonds, such as the firms that have joined the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which have a combined total of over $70 trillion under management. Therefore, there is existing financial mechanisms and capital available to finance a large-scale implementation of these combined power systems around the world. In addition to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, there are other climate finance initiatives that include firms that would likely purchase green bonds to finance these types of combined power systems. For example, there is the Institutional Investors Group on Climate Change, which includes firms that have over $54 trillion in assets under management. Secondly, there is the Climate Action 100 Plus initiative, which includes firms with over $35 trillion under assets under management. And finally, the Coalition for the International Platform for Climate Finance, which includes firms with over $7 trillion in U.S. assets under management. Please note that some of the financial firms that are members of one climate finance initiative listed here may also be members of other initiatives that are also listed here. It should be noted that green bonds are financing mechanisms for established and rated borrowers that have projects that meet specific environmental attributes. Therefore, a relatively new project developer that is seeking to utilize green bonds may need to partner with a larger company or government entity that is considered to be established and has an adequate credit rating. Many companies are now facilitating issuance of green bonds. To view a list of some of these companies that are doing this work, visit climatebonds.net/partners. On the next slide, I will outline steps to issue a green bond that has been suggested by Sustainalytics, which is a Morningstar company. Below are a set of steps to issue a green bond as suggested by Sustainalytics. First, you need to create a document that details the type of projects to be financed, proceeds, management of proceeds, commitment to reporting. This is called a green bond framework. Then this document needs to be verified by experts. This process is called external verification or second-party opinion. Afterwards, you can proceed like you would with any other bond. The usual steps apply here, which are similar to other conventional bonds. This includes structuring the bond by working with an investment bank or advisor and applying for a credit rating for this bond. This solution enables several different sectors of the economy to work together to benefit the whole of society. For example, capturing carbon through the animal cycle, or with technologies like Shell's CANSOLVE system enables oil, gas, and power plant workers to continue working. As well, it helps governments and companies that depend on income from fossil fuels to transition to a low-carbon economy. which is critical for obtaining their support for this transition. It should be noted that while carbon capture is being implemented in power plants, other energy solutions such as renewable energy can and should grow as quickly as possible. To implement this solution on a global scale, it is important to build broad-based public support for it. This includes responding to related concerns such as the ones about carbon capture and storage that have been expressed by several environmental organizations. For example, in July of 2021, about 500 organizations submitted a letter of concern about carbon capture and storage to the Canadian and U.S. governments. Therefore, I recommend that a team of experts in carbon capture, utilization, and storage industry work together to respond to the recently published concerns by these organizations. In conclusion, due to the steadily rising atmospheric CO2 levels, there is a need for exponential increase in global carbon emission mitigation measures. There are a wide range of carbon capture technologies available today, including ones that capture carbon from industrial processes and the outside air. Global thermostats technology can capture from both a natural gas power plant and from the outside air. Therefore, this solution can be widely deployed around the world relatively quickly as a negative emissions power plant. CO2 capture can be utilized for a range of uses, including vertical farming as well as being sequestered in the ground. Power plants with carbon capture can be combined with renewable energy farms to produce reliable power for the electric grid and generate negative carbon emissions. This solution can be financed on a global scale with green bonds that are purchased by firms that have joined the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which have a combined total of over $70 trillion under management. This solution helps governments, companies, and workers that depend on income from fossil fuels to transition to a low-carbon economy, which is critical for their support. To help catalyze the implementation of this opportunity on a global scale, we recommend the following. First, leverage the expertise of CCUS and DAC specialists along with the resources of CCUS clusters to help accelerate the development and implementation of combined power plants with carbon capture on a global scale. Next, invite independent groups such as Drawdown and the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions to work together to estimate the full impact of implementing this opportunity. Thirdly, inform companies in the oil, gas, power plant, solar energy, wind energy, and energy storage sectors about this opportunity, which can bring them many billions of dollars in funding. Fourth, inform financial institutions that facilitate issuance of green bonds of this opportunity, which will likely enable them to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in fees doing this work. Lastly, respond to the recently published concerns about carbon capture, utilization, and storage by 500 organizations to help build broad-based support to implement this opportunity on a global scale. Thank you for taking the time to view this video. If you're interested in more information, please visit climatesan.org/ACEM.